It makes my job so much more enjoyable. So,
Do you remember when you were a kid and you would sit in the living room and just read comics for hours on end? It was a time where you could just forget about your troubles and immerse yourself in the colorful panels as you would watch Calvin and Hobbes be up to no good again, or you would watch as Charlie Brown once again failed to kick the football out of Lucy's hands. If you never had those childhood memories, I'm sorry for your loss, but fear not, for it is not too late. While many memories of reading comics are from our childhood, there are still moments in our lives where we find ourselves enjoying and appreciating comics. I myself, as a big comic fan and a cartoonist myself, maintaining my hobby of reading comics has benefited me and my perceptions of storytelling. You should be reading more comics and graphic novels because of how comics are a form of legitimate literature for everyone that excellently tells visual stories and has mental and emotional benefits. Now, a common reason that people don't read comics is that they consider them to be too childish or unintellectual. This is partly because some may argue that comic books are no different from children's picture books. This is noted in Comics Are Picture Books by Elise and Patrick Gall, published on November 5th, 2015 in Hornbook magazine, and they observed that the conventions and definitions of picture books and comics overlap greatly because they are part of the same whole. Now, in reality, there are comics that are catered to every age demographic, and certain comics can even reach multiple demographics. They are even proven to successfully reach us, the college-age audience, and professors, because if you look around Cal Poly's campus, there are multiple comics that are used to convey certain ideas. Now, when I was a kid, I would even see political comics such as these and wonder, how come I can't understand this even though this is a comic and I am a child? And this is because comics like these are meant to cater to specifically an adult audience to convey certain messages as well. Now, graphic novels themselves are known to cross creative borders with visual storytelling. And this is important because Visual Learning by Dana Genzela, published on December 8, 2017 on eLearning Industry, points out that the statistic that around 65% of the population comprises of visual learners. Graphic novels overall have been breaking the stereotype of not being considered legitimate literature because of how they convey the same messages that regular books do, just in a different medium. A key case in point for graphic novels being considered intellectual literature is this. Oh, what the heck? There we go. Is this graphic novel entitled Moss by Art Spiegelman. In it, it conveys the story of the author's father's experiences of the Holocaust with the use of visuals along with a serious narrative and using storytelling elements such as depicting different groups of people as different animals. And as you can see, it even won a Pulitzer Prize. Now, for the concern about whether or not comics utilize the same amount of care into their stories as graphic novels and regular books, I turn your attention to Emma Krogel, the creator of a webcomic called Lumina with over 2 million followers. There was once a Q&A session on Instagram, and I asked her if she had any tips for anyone considering creating their own online comic. The advice that she gave me was, it's good to have characters planned out properly, like what their likes, their motives, personality, etc. Characters are very important. No one wants to read a story about characters they don't like or don't care about. It's better to try to study storytelling first a bit. There's plenty of books about it. And to me, this demonstrates how comic authors put just as much thought and care into their craft as regular book authors. Now, you may be asking, what is the appeal of reading comics as opposed to other forms of written literature? According to an article by John Bateman and colleagues published on June 1st, 2016 on Digital Scholarship in the Humanities, approaches to comics and graphic novels from narratology, literature, and comic studies more broadly all agree that visual properties play a crucial role for the operation and evident socio-cultural effectiveness of comics. Now, to demonstrate the effective visuals from a narrative perspective and how they can be more effective than words at times, let's look at a comparison of the same scene but in written form versus a comic form. This is the text form of this scene, which reads, "At the moment, the woman felt a tear run down her cheek, like the IV that dripped in the veins of her lover at the hospital," versus the same scene, but in comic form. As you can see, while both the text and the comic are able to portray the same scene, the use of the tear dropped into the IV in the comic is more effective than the use of simply the word "like" in the text form. Thus, this is an example of how visual storytelling can be more effective than storytelling in words. Additionally, extremely exaggerated facial expressions, such as in the comic on the left, and use of colors to convey moods of characters, such as in the comic on the right, are other examples of how visuals can effectively portray stories that would typically take paragraphs of descriptive words in a book. Now, that's not to say that visuals and words are mutually exclusive, because in situations like this comic panel, words and visuals can work together to set a scene for the reader to make them feel like they are in that position with the character. And relatable comics such as this one, made by yours truly, are some of the most popular internet genres online because of how they combine visuals and pictures and words to represent different aspects of our lives. Now, as I am showing you these silly comics, do you feel more relaxed? If so, then there's a reason for that. In the research article Remediating with Comic Strips, published on January 1st, 1976 by Phyllis Hallenbeck on Sage Journals, comics are shown to be mentally beneficial when she observes that comic strips are especially good for developing conceptual or logical abilities, such as sequencing, abstract thinking, and class inclusion. Thus, comics are not only good for the soul, but they're also good for the brain. In addition, a key factor of comics is humor, and humor is also shown to be beneficial mentally because in the article, The Neural Basis of Humor Comprehension and Humor Appreciation, published on Science Direct by Darren Campbell and colleagues in December 2015, it's noted how psychological well-being and social acumen benefit from the recognition of humorous intent and its enjoyment. Thus, reading comics harbors much more meaning than just as a thing for kids. Overall, it is for all of these reasons that reading comics harbors overall, comics and graphic novels are valid forms of literature for all ages that utilize innovative visual storytelling techniques to make us smile and benefit us psychologically. Now, in order to read comics, I not only encourage you to check out comic books and graphic novels at your local library or checking out comics in your Sunday paper, but the comic app that I use every day is called Webtoon because it gives you multiple genres of comics by independent creators. And to get started, I have this list of recommendations that you can take a picture of for when you download the app. I hope to see you in the comics section of the library and or scrolling through Webtoon soon.